Let me start to explain to you how banking really works, because I'll tell you what, it will shock you. We are led to believe that banks take in deposits, we call them deposits, so people deposit money in the banks, and the banks lend out those deposits. That's simply not true. The way it works is banks literally create money. So they actually don't need to collect it from anybody. They don't need to actually get it from central bank. They actually give you money to spend and ask you to repay it. What that means is there's no limits on how much money they can actually create. So we give these private organizations the right to create as much money as they want. Not only that, we then say to them, once they've created this money, they can charge you interest. But why? Because they only created it. Crazy, because they didn't collect it. They literally created the money, they magicked into existence. They then charge you interest for the privilege of the money that they've created. It gets worse, because then they say, by law, if you don't pay the interest, you know what? We'll take your house. We'll foreclose on the asset that you've used to buy. So these ridiculously powerful rights are given to these banks that are private organizations that can create money. It can actually charge you interest on money they've created and then use that interest and to actually take away your home. The model that I envisage is reintroducing money, which is not credit, and making sure that there's the right amount of money in the system, and it's got to flow around the system. The way I like to describe it is flow and let go. I like to explain those two concepts separately, and it's based on the story of the manna in the wilderness. So the first thing is flow. We have to actually create real money. And the way the manna worked is the manna met the needs of every person every single day. So they had the right amount of food to meet the needs. That means you need to give them enough money to meet those needs. And it's this money, not credit. So the way that the Bible describes it is actually that you give each person according to what they need to eat. Now, an adult will eat more than a child, a man more than a woman, and that there actually are numbers that are given actually in the story in the Bible. So effectively, what we need to do is make sure that everybody's needs are met every single day by them getting into their bank accounts, which is a digital wallet, not the current form of bank. It's one they control, the right the amount of money based on their age and sex and that will be enough money to buy their needs. So at the beginning of day one of the new world, this new money is created, and the amount of money in the system is actually based on the population. So it's money linked to people, not linked to gold. Much cleverer, because gold can be manipulated. People, you can't magic out people, because people have to be born, etc., or unfortunately die as well. But it's money linked to people. At the end of day one, they'll buy what they need, food, clothes, etc. At the end of the day, because of the current system, that money will not have flowed around the system, because most of it will end up in the coffers of the large organizations, because that's where all the money ends up, big supermarkets, the big IT companies. And therefore, at the end of day one, you want everybody within the local community, within the city, to have the right amount of money. They won't, because it'll all be in the center. So what one has to do then is create a use it or lose it principle. And the Bible does this very cleverly, using the concept of the Sabbath, which is a use it or lose it. He said, okay, at the end of day one, the money hasn't flown around. So some people are going to have more money in their bank accounts than they need. So what the Bible says is you have 48 hours, the Sabbath, you get double on Friday, you have 2 days to actually use that money to meet someone else's needs. So what that means is you go out into the street, you see what jobs need to be done, what people have not got food and have not got their needs, and you'd match the two. You'd actually start to solve problems with the money, because the money is designed to meet people's needs. Now, what is genius about the Bible is if you don't achieve that by the end of 48 hours, you lose it. The money goes in the manner it actually turns wormy. Now, why is that? Because it's not flowing. We're trying to achieve a flow. It hasn't flown around. It's going into all the coffers. So that money that hits Tesco, Sainsbury's, Amazon, goes. But of course, you've got certain people who haven't got food on the table. Therefore, you have to reintroduce the money because you've got to make sure that everybody has their needs met every day. So you'll have local people within the local community whose role will be to ensure that everybody's needs are met. And if somebody hasn't got flow, they will actually give them the money they need to buy the food. But the key is that the money that's given, you have to register it as a gift, as we do with welfare. It's not a loan. We don't repay welfare. But the key is to find the person work so they are part of the flow. We've got to get this limited amount of money to reach the parts that everybody needs. So that what we've got effectively in this system is a money which is not created by banks privately to do whatever they want. It's limited to the size of the population and age. It's literally flowing around so everybody's needs are met every single day. Full employment, zero inflation, and we're starting to build a thriving society. Well, I'm sitting here today suggesting some very basic rethinking, because what happens in this world is forks in decision making. So at some time in history, whether a few hundred years ago, banks came into existence and banks started lending, and they lent more and more. The system has been based around a banking system which is not cash, which is not about people being autonomous. And what we don't do is revisit those forks. We build on a platform which is fundamentally flawed. What I am suggesting, we need to go back to those basic principles. Neither the Conservative or Labour in the previous election were dealing with the fact that people can't put food on the table. People can't actually buy houses. No one is dealing with it because these forks have happened and nobody goes back to revisit fundamental principles. That's what we need to do. We have to rethink money. We have to rethink the whole system.